Good morning, Mr. Paki.
Morning.
May you please state your full name, where you are from, and the years when you schooled at Swaneng Hill School.
My name is Albert Tapedi Paki. I was born in 1950. I'm 63 years old. I attended Swaneng from 1966 and completed in 1970. Took 5 years at Swaneng.
Okay. So when you were at Swaneng, what was it like for you as a student in the early days?
Firstly, Swaneng was done looked at. It was one of those secondary schools. People never took a good interest on us. They just thought of us as laborers. That was the perception at that time.
And then what was it like in school, the environment in school?
The environment was very good. We were the first group in 1966 to come with 4 streams. We found only 2 for Form 2s, 2 Form 3s, 1 Form 5, Form 4, and 1 Form 5. Form 5 was only made of 9 students in 1966. Yes.
So did you feel like you were a part of making history back then?
At that moment, we thought it was just a normal. But now, looking back, we thought we have made history by building Swaneng. My instructor was called Mr. Sosome, and one day I made a mistake at building. I wanted to break it, and he said, "Just leave it. Your children will come and see how stupid you were." And that building item is still there. I took my children and they didn't know that was a wrong building. I told them, in 1966 I made a mistake here. It is still there. That building is still on as it was.
So how did Patrick van Rensburg influence the atmosphere of the school as a whole?
He influenced the school by personally every Saturday working with the students, building the school. Personally, he didn't instruct. He was there working with his bare hands.
So seeing him work with you people using his bare hands inspired you to give more?
Inspired all our students to give more. That is why when we look back, I came to Swaneng in 1966, and by December 1966, we went to Molepolole to Karisichele Secondary School, and we were instrumental in building their first lab in 1966 December. Rather than going home, we went to Molepolole and built the first lab of Tapedi Secondary School.
So it was all about practical work in the days of Patrick van Rensburg.
It was practical work. Actually, we did building as part of our subject. Even now, when somebody comes to build my house, I told him, I'm an ex-Swaneng student. I know how to build. I know how to mix. So a builder who builds my house knows he's looking at another builder.
So you know when somebody's making a mistake.
Yes, from building is made on the floor. If you made a wrong mixture, your house is broken from the floor.
So do you have any notable memories that you feel must be made known to the people?
We, the old Swaneng student, we were instrumental in building SHS River School. That was April 1968. We went to Donota and started the SHS. The first weekend, we had to dig the trench from the river to the present school. The second weekend, we built 4 classroom foundations. That was April 1968. And the first student of SHS were taken in Swaneng in May 1968. It is this same student we went in June. We went together back to SHS, and they themselves personally built their first classrooms.
So tell us how the education principles that were offered at Swaneng, how did they influence your life?
It influenced my life in such a way that even now, even as I'm now going to my field, to my small farm, I still take everything. I personally do everything. I instruct, but most of the time I can drive my tractor, I can plow for myself. When I give instructions, because of the Swaneng background, I give the instructions with my full hands. Hands-on. I don't supervise. I give hands-on. That's how I was brought up at Swaneng.
So it's made you live an action-orientated life.
That is my life. I gave instructions. I'm running a security company. I can drive through the night and instruct people that they must do the work.
By showing them,
by
not
showing
by
them,
telling them.
Not telling them, but showing them how to do it.
Were there any bad incidents or unruly characters at the school in the early days?
Yes, but there were few. I remember very few people who were rude, but most of the students were just obedient students.
Oh.
We had very few people who were. I think during my 5 years, only one student was expelled. All my 5 years at Swanee.
And what was the reason for their expulsion?
No, he just stole other students' money.
So there were no severe bad incidents back then?
No, there were very few. Most of the people were. I was one. When I started school, when I went to Swaneng, I was almost 16 years, but I was the youngest. The only two people who were younger than me, it was Mrs. Benson and a certain Mirabel or Rasikuta. Those were the only one who were younger. The rest were older than me.
So by the time then, people were mature enough to know what was wrong and what was right.
Most of them were matured.
So what is your opinion about Patrick van Rensburg and his ways?
Patrick van Rensburg, if they have left him in peace, he should have built an institutions which caters for the current development. People who can work. We had the builders, we had the farmers, we had the electricians. Those who did building after Form 3 did physical planning, drawings. We should be having a breed of people who fits into the community, the current development community. We will be having white-collar jobs, somebody with a white-collar job and who can still go into the garden if the Van Rensburg theory was carried on.
So tell us now about life after Swaneng. Where did you go after your secondary schooling?
When I left Swaneng, my first stop was at Botswana Police. For 3 years. I left Botswana Police and joined the mine. That's where you work. In the mine you work. There's no white-collar job in the mine. So I joined the smelter where we're doing the smelting of the copper. I stayed there for 8 years. And then I left Swaneng and joined the Voice of America. That was my only white-collar job. But that was instrument. I was an instrument technician. I did instrumentation at BCL. Okay. So I went to the Voice of America as an instrument technician. In 1979, I was elected a councillor for Silibe Pique Town Council. Okay. And in the same year, I was elected deputy mayor. 1982-83, I was the mayor of Silibe Pique Town Council. 1994, I was elected deputy mayor for 10 years. 1984 until 1994, I was deputy mayor Pique. During this time, I had the privilege of attending a lot of conferences. I attended a conference in Moscow. I attended a conference in Bulgaria. In Africa, I attended a conference in Lusaka, Zambia, and Mombasa in Kenya.
So in all those times, as you were serving the community, you were serving the community as an action-orientated man.
Yes.
With the basis from Swaneng Secondary School.
Yes, that's all the party conferences which were held in Pique. I was there doing the real cooking because I was cook from Swaneng. So they will be very surprised to find the mayor doing all the cooking.
So you were a mayor that led by example.
Yes. And when we had everything, like when I was mayor of the BDP, when the BDP came to Pique to hold a congress, they will find me. There was one time where I was called from the pots. I had to throw up my overall and go and eat with the president. That was quite masiri. That is the Swaneng background.
That is the Swaneng background.
Yes.
Okay, so you managed to successfully serve the community. Even up to now, you are still doing something that is instrumental and key to the society.
Yes. So I stayed in Pique for 30 years. During this time, during my stay in the Voice of America, I went to America for 6 months. We stayed in Washington for a month and we flew to North Carolina. There's a big station there called Greenville. Stayed in Greenville. From Greenville, we flew to Texas, Dallas. From there we flew to Los Angeles, and then we drove from Los Angeles up the way up to San Francisco. So I spent 6 months in the States.
Living in the States, even with that action-orientated principle.
We were there as instrument technicians. So you work. There's a breakdown. You work.
Okay.
The transmitter is not working. The news is not going to the people. And as far as radio is concerned, every second is counted. If you are on the air, just listen. If your radio is on the air for 1 second, you become alarmed. A radio is never off. 24 hours.
It always has to be on.
If there's anything, you have to work it. So my Swaneng background made me always on the hands job.
What are your thoughts on the present Swanning Hill Secondary School?
Well, I had two of my nephews doing the O-level in Swanning. It's completely changed. It's just like an ordinary secondary school. It's not like an ordinary secondary school because, as I said, during our time, we built SHS, we built Tutome, we built Madiba. All those were built by the Swanning labor, student labor. And the schools have produced a lot. There are so many doctors from Swanning, so many doctors from SHS, Dr. Rogers Sidis, Rogers Molefi. Those were students. Those were the first people who came to Swanning, and they were working every weekend in SHS, building their own classroom. He ended up as a lecturer at University of Swanning.
Okay. So how do you feel about the whole experience of the early Swanning Hill School when you look back now?
If you take the current,
education
technical
system
needs of the country, and you take that background of Swanning, that background of Swanning should be it should be fits into our current needs. I mean, how many we've got so many Zimbabweans here, so many South Africans who are technicians. But if we carried that spirit of Swanning, you should be having, these people fitting straight into the community, into the technical needs of the country.
So you feel that is the kind of education policy we need? Completely,
100%. That's education. We now got this Palapet
technical, the university,
and you got the views there, and you get a big gap here, and then because if that thing was connected, so as I said, that technical background which we had. I said we had farmers, we had builders, we had people who were doing technical drawing, we had electricians, we had plumbers.
You had covered every sector that was there.
Those people, if that thing continue, there will be no gap. We should not be ordering Zimbabweans and South Africans technicians if that continued.
So, do you feel now at this moment that you made history when you were a student at Swanning?
I thought so. If I go to SHS, I go to Tutome, I go to Madiba, I will say this as my hand.
And you feel proud of yourself to see such.
And let me tell you, all the classes we built 47 years ago are still being used. And the Chinese are falling apart. The classrooms we built 47 years ago are still being used, are still working. They're not falling apart. That hall, we took almost 4.5 years to build that, literally from scratch. In 1966, when we came here, there was no hall. I think when Mr. Holzinger came, it was somewhere around. We started in 1966. There was no hall, but by 1970, when I left, that hall was officially opened. That hall was built 100% by the students. The original hall, Swanning Hall, was built 100% by the student, and I was part of that. For 4.5 years, I built that hall.
Quite inspiring for me.
I can even go and show you where Jeffrey Musidisi and Pelnomi Vincent fought and they fell from the rafters. They are now big names, but I can tell you this is where they were building.
Okay, that's interesting. Okay, no, is there anything else that you'd like to add in conclusion to your story?
Swanning has produced very intelligent people. As I said, at Pikwe, one day, just by coincidence, the whole local administration was headed by a Swanning student. There was Bokang Habangana, who was the station commander, police. There was Joshua Haleforolu, who was the company secretary, BCL company secretary. I was the town mayor, and there was Mr. Haleboy, who was the district commissioner. The whole administration in Pikwe was headed by ex-Swanning students. We had people who have made it from Swanning, like Moses Lekaukau. We had Pelnomi Vincent, who is the minister. We had David Rendo, who was the deputy permanent secretary. We had Gabriel Seelezo, who is the head of the International Independent Electoral Commission. We had Serwalo, who was the permanent secretary, Minister of Finance. That is in government. But we had so many people who were classmates who were bank managers like Masego Liburu, Tsokodi Soraboloko. We produced a lot of things, a lot of people who led Swanning. And because of their hands-on background, most of them made it to the top.
Okay, thank you. We appreciate the time that you've given us and the information that you've given us.
No, but as I said, I think we made history. I was very, sad when I went to SHS. They had broken the first buildings, the first roundabouts. So I was very unhappy. But at least you can go to Tome now. Our first classrooms we built in 1969 are there. You can go to Madiba. The classrooms we built in 1970 are still there. They're not falling apart because we knew we're building according to the international standard of building. We didn't do what the Chinese are doing here. You go to the council chamber, it's falling apart. You go there, you go to transport, everything the Chinese build, because the Chinese don't care about the building codes. We knew we were students, but as I said, our classrooms are still standing 47 years down the lane. We were students, and every term, at the end of the term, we used to take, rather than going home, we'll say it is us in school. How many are out? And we'll not go home, and we'll go to the work camp and build schools. That's why I say SHS, Totome, and Madiba were built by Swanning students. We were very much interested in our brothers who were not at school. Van Rensburg was a unique somebody, very unique. He used to work with us every Saturday. There was one day where there was no food, no wood, and then rather than going to the class, we decided to go on that hill, pretending to go and collect some wood. We thought when we came back, the principal would be very angry. But he said, when we came back, he said, "My children, when there's no wood, people go out and collect wood, and they're not punished. Go back to a classroom, you'll come back at lunch, breakfast will be ready." It's a unique thing. You never expect that when you are supposed to go to class and you pretend to go and pick up wood, the principal will talk to you like that. Another incident was when we were complaining about the food. He called everybody into the courtyard and he walked through. He said, "This side, stay this side, this side, stay this side. You are Botswana. You are complaining about food. I agree. But I don't have the mandate to expel students for food. It is you who can give me the mandate that I can expel this and remain with this. I'll give them good food, or expel this and remain with this. I'll give them food." And there was nobody who wanted to give Van Rensburg that mandate of expelling somebody for food. Those were one of the most interesting things.
Okay.
We're in two parts. He said, "My children, the food is not good, but I don't have the mandate of expelling students for food. It is only you who can give me that mandate to expel your brothers, that you must have good food." And nobody took action.
So he was more an action-orientated person.
And a very high diplomat. Very, very high. It took us 5 years. It was, he was somebody. Even if you make a mistake, you are taken before the principal. He will ask you why. You will tell him and say, "Why?" And he will all ask you why, until you stop.
So that is all that you wanted to add?
Yeah, that's all. But what I'm saying, having been part of the industry in Piki, I think that education with production was the best thing we should have helped this country. Right now, there's a pipeline. There's no water in Gaborone, and there's a pipeline from Palape to the new dam, and it needs specialized welders. They have to take 50 Indians come and do that. If we got 2 ex-Swanning students who have done coded welding. There are only 2 now working on that pipeline. Coded. Those who graduate from welding here, they went on with their coded welding. These guys used to work for BCL. At every shutdown, BCL calls them. And they are the only 2 Botswanas working on the north-south pipeline doing coded welding all those pipes to sustain a certain pressure.
So in conclusion, our society needs education with production.
100%. It is more needed now than in the olden days. In the olden days, it was easier to get employment. When we left Swanning in 1970, at the door there was an employment. There was a desk there where you were given employment. I left school on the 30th of November and I started work on the 1st of December. I left school having been employed. That was what was happening in 1970. My first employer was Central Statistics. Then I went to Botswana Police. But my first employer was Central Statistics. So in those days, you left school with employment. But with now, no employment up to university level, I think those people will now be fitting into the computerized world, because every school will be having a brigade for farming, building, welding, all those things. And let me tell you, the first welders from this Swaneng were the first people who were supervisors at BCA. So I think Swaneng has contributed. But if that old theory we had
would be brought back,
will be brought back now, because now the government can have the schools which are now the brigades, they can still be attached to the school. We still have got people from class going to the brigade and learning. All these things, backyard gardening, all those things could have been easier with students from the Swaneng type of education. So
you feel that these ideas should be implemented into our education policies?
Strictly, I said that. I'm a retired somebody. I told you I'm 63 years old, but I've gone through industries, I've gone through administration, and that's what I say we need them. I mean, now we've got CTO now. You take your vehicle to CTO, a government vehicle takes 3 months to get a battery. But if we had mechanics from brigades, I think we should not be having all these problems.
Okay, no, we thank you so much.
Okay.